everyone meets. And I know everyone is as excited as I am because I'm a big fan of consulting. So I think the first question I will be asking our speaker today is to give us an overview of the consulting industry and its role in business. Because the main reason for everyone joining here is to get like a brief insight into the consulting space because I know 1 hour will not be enough for us to talk about the whole areas and spheres of consulting. So we want to just understand consulting to see if it is something we are really excited to do, if it is something anyone here wants to branch into. So if you could start by giving us an overview of the consulting industry and its role in business.
Yeah, that's helpful. By the way, I've not seen these questions before, so when you ask the one that I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know the answer. But yeah, broadly, what we do in the consulting industry is to advise large organizations to help them solve their most important problems. And it's if that sounds vague, it's intentional, right? It's partly intentional on behalf of the industry itself because they're always trying to grow, which means always trying to evolve and do different types of work. And also because it genuinely cuts across such a wide range of concepts. Um, let me look for an example. If MTN decides that they want to, I don't know, let's say MTN decides they want to acquire Glow, they want to buy Glow, right? They want to merge with Glow to become one company. There's a few questions they need to answer right away, right? Should they full how much, let's say start first of how much should they pay for Glow? What's Glow worth, right? Second, should they fully merge operations with Glow or should they acquire it and Glow should stand alone, right? Should they transition Glow's customers to their customers as well? How would they think about pricing differently? What percentage of Glow's staff do they want to keep versus let's go? What do they do with their telecom infrastructure network? So all the towers around the houses, you need to do some work of like, where does MTN, if MTN has a tower on Unilag Road and Glo has a tower on Unilag Road, maybe you don't need both, maybe you need one. So there's a wide range of business problems that MTN and business questions that MTN needs to answer. To help bring this thing they are trying to achieve, which in this case is to acquire Glow to life. And what happens with organizations many times is they don't always have all the talent and all the skills to answer all those questions. The only people who do are people who it's a problem they face often, like Access Bank acquires a lot, right? They acquired Intercontinental, they acquired Diamond Bank. So for Access Bank, for example, the M&A, they are fine, they can answer those questions. But in general, organizations face different types of challenges. Many times those challenges they are not adequately resourced to solve. So they tend to reach out to management consulting companies to help them resource people who are skilled in tackling that particular problem and work through it together. So that's basically what consulting is about. And it's very, very wide range of companies across industries, capabilities, etc. But some ways that's what consultants do at a high level. You support organizations to solve business problems.
Okay, thank you so much for giving us like a deep explanation, trying to give us like different examples of some of the things you do. So basically, in a nutshell, for people just joining, consulting help businesses to solve their problems because they don't have those capabilities. So they reach out to consulting firms and they help them using their resources to help them solve those problems. So thank you so much once again for answering that question so well. So I think my next question would be, I know some of us here, we've heard that there are different type of consulting in different industries. So if you could shed some light into different areas of consulting. Are there really different areas of consulting? Is it that people are just telling us there are different areas where it's just one consulting and has like different teams within that consulting, or there are actually different areas of consulting that people can branch into?
Yeah, consulting is very big. Consulting is very big. Anybody can wake up and say they're a consultant, right? You can be an educational consultant. In medicine, there's doctors who become consultants at some level. So yeah, it's very vague, right? But for the purpose of this, we're talking about management consulting, which is specifically, helping the management teams of large corporations solve problems for those corporations. Um, and even there's a lot of division, right? I can say I'm a management consultant, but within that, there is strategy consulting, there's accounting type consulting, there's a lot of people who focus on things like turnaround work and restructuring, and then there are sector specialists. So how I would think about it in general, and the lines are all blurred now, right? But how it used to be was that strategy consultants focus on problems that are not very defined and very early stage in the pipeline. So if we go back to the example of MTN trying to acquire Glow, right? At the stage of saying how much should we pay for Glow, you want strategy consultants because you want people who can think bottom up. You do a lot of frameworks, do a lot of analysis, etc., to bring that to life. Um, at some point in the process, you would need implementation consultants. So um, let's say MTN uses a particular software like I don't know SAP or something to manage uh, to manage like the IT infrastructure, right? At some point, you might need to do a project where you want to transition the Glow team to use the same IT infrastructure as the MTN team. Okay, let me make it very simple. Okay, let's say MTN uses Zoom and Glow uses Google Meet, right? So imagine you need to do some work to integrate all Glow's, I don't know, 20,000 employees from Meet to MTN's corporate Zoom accounts. That type of project the scope is very defined and is very specialist. So what happens is you tend to have more implementation type consultancies and not strategy type consultancies. So I'm sure you consider to this. I'm not very likely to do a project like that. But somebody who is an implementation consultant, the Big Four does a lot of that. So Deloitte, KPMG, EY, there's one more I'm forgetting, PwC. They are more likely to work on projects like that. There's also the accountancy consultancy space, which the Big Four is also extremely strong in, which is, how do you help an organization to file its taxes, and things like that. And finally, there's boutiques. So boutiques are just consultants that focus on an area. So somebody can set up a boutique and say, this consultancy, our focus is helping you optimize your real estate footprints. So if you are Owando, our job is helping you choose where your head office should be for XYZ reasons. I don't know. So that they are very specialist, they are very boutique. So in general, so I would say, and again, all of this is the lines are blurred, but you could broadly say there's four groups of consultants. So strategy consultants, which is usually MBB, McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. Um, Implementation consultants, which is a very wide range and group of consultancies, but the Big Four are very strong there. Accountancy consultancies, which is mostly finance, tax, that type of work, audit. There again, the Big Four is king. And boutique. So any consultant that has a niche of specialist work they do to support organizations, I think, and that one is such a large group of companies that you can't really count them. But that's how I see the industry, at least.
Think I've learned quite a lot because personally for me, whenever anyone mentions the big four, I'm only saying they are not management consultants. They are accounting firms. They are just trying to just add consulting to their niche. So I'm always saying the main consulting firms are the MBBs, and the accounting firms are just the big fours are just accounting firms that just had strategy consulting to part of the value they offer to their clients. So you trying to like, you can tell me if I'm wrong because
I agree and
that's what I
disagree
think.
at the same time. So like it's a bit of where is somebody best, right? So I agree 100% that when it comes to the accountancy type work, Big Four is number one for sure, right? But I don't think it would be fair to say Big Four are not management consultants. They are management consultants, right? And they do a lot of consulting work. Traditionally, they are less strong in strategy, they are more strong in implementation. But also in Nigeria, the Big Four does, especially KPMG, I believe they do a lot of, they punch above their weight class. And how I mean is that in in Nigeria, McKinsey came in 20 years ago, maybe 2004. And even then, they've had a lot of success, but they came in late. People had been eating for decades, right? So they came in late. Bain came and left. They struggled. BCG came properly late, less than 10 years ago. I think 2016 is when they started testing the waters in Nigeria. So what that means is that you might say that in some markets, um, the Big Four does more accounting, but in places like Nigeria, where there was gap in strategy because the big strategy players didn't come to the market on time, then the Big Four actually does quite a bit of strategy work. That's so for me, that's the first way to think about it. And then the second way to think about it is many of them now have a specific strategy unit. So EY has Parthenon, which only does strategy. Deloitte, PwC has strategy and PwC strategy and which only does strategy. Deloitte has Deloitte, which only does strategy. So it's to some extent I agree with you, but it's the market is big enough that everybody can eat, if you see what I mean. So I still rate the Big Four quite highly, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think for the undergrad or recent graduates, don't make the same mistake that I made when I was an undergraduate because I was so keen at not working at Big Four. I'm like, these guys are accounting firms, they are not consulting firms. What am I going to learn there? I believe they are not consulting firms. But now, maybe if I had joined this kind of call or someone had enlightened me that they still do strategy, right? Maybe would have when my friends were applying to KPMG, then I didn't apply. I was like, no, they're accounting firms. I'll never work in Big Four. So
Well, yeah, a big madam. You work in IB, if I'm not mistaken. So you don't rate us consultants, both the strategy and the implementation and any of us. We
not
IB
at
people
all.
are different breed.
I'm not even working in IB. I'm not working in IB. I'm working in operations. I'm a very big fan of consulting. I'm so passionate about consulting. So yeah. So I think you've learned one of the things from the conversation. So now, we've understood what consulting is in general, the different parts to consulting, the big fours, the big threes, the boutique consulting firms, the ones that are so keen on one part of consulting. We know different parts of consulting now. So my next question would be, now that we know this aspect of consulting, we know what consulting is about, what are the skills that we need to have as undergrads, recent grads, entry level career people? What are the skills we need to have to excel in consulting?
So the good thing about consulting is that they'll take anybody. That's a really good thing. Like nobody cares if you studied accounting or you studied your but like literally nobody cares. Um, but what they care about, I would say there's four or five things. Um, Academic excellence is very important. Um, Good communication skills is very important. Leadership skills, like things you've done that shows you interact a lot with people and you can work in a team. So leadership/teamwork is very important. Um, in many regards, being exposed, however you define that, like just a bit being exposed to the world and not being focused on your bubble, I think helps a lot. Um, and again, let's go back to the MTN example. So if you are MTN's, I don't know, CFO, right, or Chief Strategy Officer, and you have the McKinsey people trying to pitch you that they will help support your whole strategy to acquire Glow, right? Um, McKinsey is going to charge you a pretty penny. So McKinsey might say, MTN, you're going to pay $2 million for this project, right? The first thing MTN CFO is going to look at is, let me look at your team that is going to deliver this project. And if it's going to very quickly sense check that, do I rate this team or not? And, if the answer is no, I don't rate this team, I have people in my staff who can do this, then he doesn't even want, why should he pay $2 million to somebody else to do it? So what what is McKinsey selling in this example? They're giving the impression that they are selling the best of the best, right? So they are trying to give the impression that, hey, we are going to give you people that you don't have, like people who are, for lack of a better, or better than people you have. That's the pretense they are trying to pretend. Whether that's true or not is a different thing. Two, they're trying to sell our, let's say, experience and capabilities delivering this. So what the McKinsey person is going to put in his pitch deck is going to say, well, we helped Access Bank when they acquired Diamond Bank. We did this strategy for them. Well, we helped IHS Towers when they acquired, I don't know, American Towers. We did this strategy for them. Well, we helped Dangote Cements when they acquired those State Cement Company. We did this for them. So so they're saying two or three things at the same time. One, we're bringing very talented people who are really, really good that you will struggle to get if you were going to get them. That's what they pretend to sell, which may or may not be true. Two, we are bringing organizational capability in that we've done this. You as a CFO, this may be your first time doing an acquisition of this scale, but our team in the last 10 years has done 15 such acquisitions, right? And three, we are going to work harder than your people, right? And that's a bit the consulting stroke of, you'll be there 8 a.m. to midnight every day, right? But there are people who get off at 5. So that's the pitch that, we put these three together, you need us, and you should pay us the $2 million to deliver this. Is that true? Is that not true? I leave that to you. But that's the pitch. So to enable the McKinsey partners or BCG partners or KPMG partners or whoever partners make that pitch, the people they are recruiting, the academic excellence has to be there, right? So in general, they are biased towards people who have gone to really good schools and who have had really good grades, because they are trying to insinuate that the intellectual horsepower is there, right? So I think that's one. Two, I talked about comms. A lot of these engagements require good communication skills, written and oral. So you're going to do a lot of report writing, you're going to do a lot of research, you're going to put together a lot of presentations, you're going to do a lot of speaking many times to fairly senior people, and you need to somehow be polished and somehow be clear and things like that. So academic excellence, a bit of comms, leadership, because they want to feel like you can take initiative, because if a problem is easy, nobody's going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars for somebody else to fix it. So they only come with problems that, okay, it's going to be a bit tricky. So as a result, the consultancies want to have the impression that you're somebody who has done things, who has put themselves out there, who has, you know, being treasurer in your department, or being a volunteer for your engineering Muslim student society, or being I don't know, person that organizes a church band, something, I don't know, but something to show that you like being in the action, right? And you you like leading, and you like volunteering, and you like engaging with people, and you like trying to get things done. So a lot of those need to come across. So I think about academic excellence, comms, leadership. I would say humility. I'm not sure what I even said the last time, but I think being humble and having a bit of a learning, like being willing to put in the work to learn, because especially in the early years for young people like all of us, um you I've not done an acquisition project before, right? So if the whole MTN Glow example, I don't have any at the moment entering that project. I would not have had any experience acquiring a telecoms company, but I need to be able to work hard, learn quick, and be humble enough to say what do I need to do to support and to add value, um and then be part of that project in a useful way. So there's a bit of being willing to work hard, being willing to learn hard. Sometimes there's play hard as well. But yeah, I think those if somebody is able to show I'm top talent, or signal that they are top talents through their education, through their grades, things like that, able to show that they have good comm skills, able to show that they have some leadership or volunteering or those sorts of skills. Um, I think analytical skills or being willing to learn. You don't need to know everything, but like, okay, you really come across as eager, humble, and ready to work hard. I think those are the type of people consultancies look for. But it
Wow.
doesn't matter what you studied, nobody really cares.
Mm. So first thing is, who is not a scam, guys? Go and rock your boat well. Your academic performance is really important if you want to go to consulting. So school is not a scam. Then take on leadership roles, as you said, even if it is those small things in your in in your mosque, in class, in your faculty, in your department. Try and take those leadership skills, own it well, engage in all these programs so that you can get all of these skills. So as I mentioned, you have to be humble, willing to learn. You don't have to be too proud. Don't feel like you know everything. Don't worry, I've learned one or two things so that by the time I get an offer in consulting, I'll come back and tell all of you.
I don't know whether it's me you are trying to whine or it's them you are trying to whine, because anybody that is in IB does not need a consulting job.
You're not. I'm trying to explain to you that I'm not in core IB. I'm not
So
the one
I
getting.
disagree. I disagree.
I'm just supporting the IB guys. So I don't have the money.
I still disagree.
Kind of, ha. Now you don't want to believe me. It's
I
fine. It's
I fully
fine.
disagree. Anybody that is an IB is an IB. Please, 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 and please.
Ah, hey God, it's fine. But thank you so much for that. I think everyone has learned one or two things as to the skills that they need to transition into consulting. So while reading your bio, I also noticed that you studied engineering while you were in Unilag. Then, despite not having, although you already mentioned that consulting does not care about what field of study you are, you just have to have the required skills, be very good academically, have other qualities they need, then you'll be able to get into consulting. But for you as a person, how were you able to move, knowing fully well that you need to know some things about numbers, finance, some little things about accounting, in case there are some projects that you need to do modeling or valuation for. So how were you able to like equip yourself? How were you able to transition from someone that has engineering background into consulting?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think again recapping what you said and what I said. So strategy consulting one of the few industries that they genuinely don't care what you studied. Like as far as they are concerned, the most important thing to be a strategy consultant is to spend time in strategy consulting. So if I decide I'm going to spend all my nights now reading for CFA and I fully qualified as a chartered financial analyst, they are not going to increase my salary. They are not going to promote me. They don't care, right? And replace that with anything, whether it's CFA, whether it's PMP, whether they really genuinely don't care. As far as they are concerned, what is helpful is consulting, immersion into consulting experience. Everything else, they don't care, especially once you're in the job. Um, Transitioning for me, mine was a bit unique because um I would say maybe my third year or so in Unilag, it was clear to me that I was not going to practice engineering. Um, yeah, I think it was clear to me. And initially, Yeah, but basically what happened is I became much more taken with startups. And I spent my final year doing a lot of work with Semicolon. I became much more taken with startups. I was still interested in consulting, but the opportunity didn't quite present itself. And when it did present itself was uh post shortly after grad, and I think then BCG was doing so in nine. McKinsey has their YLP Young Leaders Program, something like that. You do it
Yes,
one
Young
year.
Leaders Program.
Thank you. And BCG has GAP, I think Graduate Analyst Program, something like that. Both of them 1 year over NYSC, and it's supposed to be your immersion into consulting. And afterwards, they might take you on full time, and then Um, so I applied. McKinsey did not rate me. So that died a natural death. Um, BCG at the time they interviewed me. No, they called me for a test which I passed. Called me for a first round interview which also went okay. And then COVID hit. So basically my interview process got paused, and that was yeah, I think that was the end of it. Because it never really picked up afterwards. But I guess what happened for me is at the same time I was thinking a lot about grad school, and at the time I had the INSEAD Master in Management program offer. um this is not needed. Like, having a master's program to get into consulting is not needed. I think it's a bit more for me. It's a bit more about Jackpot than it was about getting into consulting. But some ways, yeah, I did that program, and back to the thing about consultancies care a bit about your academics, where you went to school and the grades you had. Being in INSEAD, which is a fairly good school in Europe, for business and finance, meant that I had some consulting um, engagements and tests and interviews. And at the time, I didn't get to BCG again. I also didn't get in, but I joined a boutique. I talked a bit about boutiques, which are much more specialist, called ZS Associates, and I was with them for a year and a half or so before I eventually switched to BCG. So my own path to consulting and strategy consulting is more is more up and down. It's not straightforward. I got into BCG on my third attempt and those sorts of things. But for somebody who is trying to replicate it today, I would say focus on your academics, have as good grades as possible. um try to build those steps: the academic excellence, the leadership, the comms, the passion for learning, and the analytical skills. Try to do things that demonstrates to them that you are that person. And for example, I saw somebody sent me a CV early this morning, and it was just like somebody's CV saying University of Lagos, electrical engineering, one bullet point GP. And I told him, because I like to be frank, I was like, see, bro, this CV doesn't sell you. Like, if I'm a HR person and you send me this CV, I'll throw it away, right? I didn't say that, but like that's what I would have said if I were more blunt, right? What you want the CV to look like is BSc Electrical Engineering, University of Illinois, bullet one, treasurer, Electrical Engineering Students Association, achieved 25% growth in student fees over calendar year. Bullet two, um, University of Illinois representative at Nigerian Electrical Engineering, I don't know, and Computer Science Innovation Contest. Bullet three, um, publisher, um, implications on material science, on indigenous electrical engineering components, Nigeria Society of Electrical Engineers. Bullet four. So like things that say you are doing stuff, like that's how they evaluate those things. Nobody's going to sit down and ask you, oh, do you have leadership experience? Oh, have you volunteered before? They literally just look at what your profile says, and it's up to you to build the experiences that mean when they have a quick glance, all those things jump at them. And when they see those, four things or four bullets jump at them under your degree. And that I didn't even mention academic excellence, which I'm taking for granted, that one of the bullets will be blah 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 grade blah 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 CGPA second class upper or whatever, because that's what they care about, or first class, because just because that's what they care about, not that that's super important in life. But so summary is, if somebody wanted to aspire to strategy consulting today, I would say, and they're an undergrad, I would say focus on building the experiences that help you position yourself for now. And when at the graduation point, you can focus on those YLP or gap, those NYSC type immersions into consulting, right? I would say that's the way to go. And the truth is, even if you decide to jackpot, you're going to do the exact same thing. If you decide to jackpot and go to Europe like I did, or the US or wherever, you are still going to go and do the exact same thing. Try to demonstrate that you hit all those criteria, and then apply.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. I think so. If you have anyone that is not in the finance space, that means you're not studying finance, you're not studying economics, you're not studying anything related to business, you're in engineering or science, you still have a shot in you have a very big shot in consulting, as he has said. You just have to display those skills, values that I've mentioned, and you'll be able to get it. So I think one thing most of us don't know, or most people here don't know, is that consulting application process or recruitment process is quite different from every other industry, in the sense that when you pass the application and when you want to get in, it's not the old behavioral interviews that we do or this or that. They have like their own specific type of interview. And why I'm asking is because for me, I think I applied to McKinsey when I was in Nigeria. I applied like twice, I applied to BCG like twice. I passed the whole CV stage and I got to the interview stage for BCG two different times. I got into first round of interview for BCG twice. I got into first round of interview for Dalbec once, and I didn't get it. So I'm just trying to since I've experienced that, and since he's already in, maybe you could shed light to everyone here. What are the things you need to do to ace that interview for the strategy consulting firms? You've done this homework, you have all the skills, you have the academic excellence, you've applied, your CV is on point, and you've got into the interview stage. How do you scale it?
First off, you're getting to the interview stage, congrats. Like, for real. Yeah, yeah, for real. Because they try to be selective. I don't agree with a lot of it, but if we're being realistic, it's how they try to position themselves, and it shows that you've done enough from a like in terms of getting all the experiences that help you tell a story. That means you get shortlisted, right? So to me, that's like, yeah, like yay you, right? So I think that's the first thing. And like I said, I got in on my third attempt, so I can relate 100% to thinking like, oh
Already, I'll
yeah,
not give up.
yeah, like, so I can relate 100%, right? Some people think life comes easy, that no be this person as smalls now, then go get them. But no be so. Life is harder than that, right? And you often don't get what you want. Um I think acing case interviews, and for those who don't know, a lot of the consultancies use a case interview process, which means they give you an illustrative business problem from typically from a previous project they have had, and try to get your insights on how you would solve it. Um, and it's just like you enter an interview and then they say, hey, the prompt is MTN, they're looking to I don't know, acquire Glow. How would you go about it? And it's up to you to lead the interview and to come to an answer. So it can be really difficult because you are usually put on a problem or a project you've not heard about before and you know very little about. Um To me, there's two things here. There's a bit, what are they looking for slash what do you want to demonstrate? And then there's how do you prep? So there are two different things, right? Um, what are they looking for slash what do you need to demonstrate is remind me, there's one thing I wanted to add to after saying those two. Um, is what are they looking for slash what do you need to demonstrate is one, curiosity. So the first thing is when you have that prompt, our client is MTN, they're Nigeria's largest telecom network. They've engaged us as McKinsey to support the acquisition of Globalcom, Nigeria's fourth largest network. How would you go about this? You want to demonstrate curiosity. So, you know, so that means asking questions. So that might be, what is the rationale for the acquisition? Why are they acquiring Glow? They might say, oh, they're acquiring because they want to double their subscriber base, or they might be acquiring because NCC forced Glow to sell and it's an opportunistic acquisition. So like showing that curiosity, okay, what does success look like? You ask the interviewer back, how do we measure success? And they might say, oh, success means doing this acquisition in a way that nobody leaves the company, right? Or like, so some things to show curiosity, and the interviewer's insights will give you a hint into which part, how to solve the case, right? So if the interviewer says success for them is ensuring that all of Glow's customers transfer fully to MTN, then you know that maybe at some point in the interview, you should talk about retention strategy. You should talk about something like, doing a promo that says every customer that switches to MTN as part of the distinct gets 5,000 Naira credit free. So like your curiosity will help get the insights that help drive the case. So I'll say curiosity is important. The second one is being structured, being structured in your communication. How do I mean? Okay, so I'll give an example. If somebody says, if somebody says, yeah, if somebody says, um, what type of job are you looking for? There's two ways somebody can answer that question. Somebody can say, oh, from when I grew up, I wanted to be an architect, but when I applied to JAM, I didn't get architecture, so I did building science. But when I did building science, I was thinking I'd get a first class, but there was one professor that didn't like me, so I got a 2-1. But the year I was meant to go for NYSC was COVID, so I never went on NYSC. So I started learning to be a IT professional, and the person needs to be tired. Like, oh my God, what's your point? Somebody else might say, what type of job are you looking for? And you say, I'm looking for a job. There are three things I care about in the job I look for. One, I want to work for a top tier organization that gives me leadership potential. Two, I want to work in the private sector because I think there's more growth than in the public sector. Three, I want to work on an important, impactful problem, and I don't want to do things that are illegal or have a negative impact on society. So I don't want to work for tobacco, for example. For anybody listening here, this is how I know if there's anybody listening. Do you see the difference in those two answers?
Yeah.
Apart from
Yes.
Motunrola, I actually want to know if anybody actually got this.
Please, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, we can tell the difference.
So,
Yes, I can tell the difference.
so one person had a very structured communication style, and one person was rambling. And you don't want to ramble in your consulting interviews because if you think about it, the problems that you are going to solve, let's go back to the MTN example. Now I'm so happy. I'm so happy that we used that example when we started. If you are new to it and you've not done an acquisition project before, they are going to put the team together in a room and say, guys, let's structure this problem, right? And you all sit down together and break the problem into different work streams. And one person might say, hey, I'm focused on communications. Everything I'm going to do is on how do we manage comms. Another person's module might be, oh, I'm focused on the pricing. How much should we pay? So I'll do all the numbers, all the analysis, all the mathematics to come to that answer. Another person might be focused on customer interviews. So I'll do a lot of speaking to current MTN employees, current Glo employees to understand their culture, to ensure that the new organization's culture captures everything. So the summary is they sit down and structure an approach to solve the problem. So you want to illustrate that you are structured and you know how to structure um you know open-ended problems, and it needs to come across in your communication style. And similarly, if at the end of the project you're reporting to MTN CEO or CFO on your recommendations, MTN CEO doesn't have time to hear you say your life story. You need to be super crisp. What are the takeaways? Why is it important for him or her? So they are checking for that a lot. So we talked about curiosity and asking questions that help give you insights on the things that you want to cover, right? We talked about communication style being structured. They care a lot as well about analytics. So like being like quantitative abilities, right? So for example, you ask some questions, and you ask some questions, blah blah blah, about MTN and Glo, and then your interviewer says, okay, I have some data for you, and the data is a chart of the last 10 acquisitions in Nigeria, how much revenue the company was doing, and how much they were acquired for. So maybe they will say Diamond Bank was doing 1 billion revenue, they were acquired for 15 billion. I don't know. I don't know which companies. Let's say Podio was doing 2 billion revenue, they were acquired for 10 billion. It's like a chart, a graph. Each company is a graph with the revenue and the acquisition price. So, and they now tell you Glo's revenue. What they want you to do there is to quickly find like the average of the ratio, right? So let's say MTN, or I don't remember which company I started with. Diamond Bank was 1 to 15 billion. Maybe the next one was 2 to 70 billion. Maybe the first one was 0.5 billion to 13 billion. What they want you to do very quickly, and then they tell you Glo is doing 4 billion in revenue. What they want you to do is 1 to 15, that's the first ratio. The second ratio, maybe it was 2 billion to 70, so that's 1 to 35. Maybe the third ratio was 0.5 million to 15, that's 1 to 30. So now you average 1 to 15, 1 to 35, 1 to 30. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe the answer is 1 to 17. Then you now say, okay, if the answer is 1 to 17 and Glo's revenue is 4 billion, then 4 times 17. Somebody tell me what's 4 times 17. I think like 68 billion, since I don't know. But yeah, so just that's like the analytical type components of, no, it can't be 68 billion. Can it be 68 billion? Oh yeah, it is 68 billion. Okay, so but the summary is that within your interview, there will be some scenarios in which if you're asking the right questions, the interviewer will have something analytical for you to do some math to estimate whether you're generally comfortable with numbers, because it's a job that requires a lot of comfort with numbers. So what have we spoken about in what the interview involves? Curiosity, structured comms, analytical skills. And the fourth one is a bit, let's say, tailored insights. So basically, you don't want everybody to be a robot that comes to every project saying, oh, I've memorized some frameworks. You want somebody that is thinking. So if, for example, the problem you're trying to solve is how much the new toll gate for Lekki Epe Expressway charge, you want in your mathematics and your analysis that you're going to do to be able to say, oh, if we estimate the revenue to be 1 billion naira, let's apply a 10% discount or a 20% discount, assuming, there are hours of the day that are peak and there's a lot of traffic, and there's hours of the day that are not peak and people are not driving, people are at home. Or I don't know if you see what I mean. So something to show that you are actually thinking about the problem and you're not just throwing out framework and mathematics. So that's if it's like if it's a Lekki Ekpe problem, if the problem is if you're working for a bank and you're doing some numbers and where the analytics thing has something to do with bank revenue from giving loans, it will make sense for you to say, for example, that let's apply a 20% discount for failure rates because some people will take the money and run away. So basically, something to show that your problem solving is tailored and you are genuinely thinking about that problem in your front and you're saying something that is helpful. So if I were to recap, what do consulting case interviews look for? I think you want to demonstrate curiosity. You want to demonstrate structured comms, structured communications. You want to demonstrate some analytical comfort that you can be comfortable with numbers and make conclusions. And now I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, and you want to demonstrate that you are genuinely thinking about the problem and you can share some that in your thinking and in your model and in your assumptions, you're taking some personalized insights that is only applicable to that problem and not just doing 1 + 1 = 2.
My God, I didn't want that to finish. Thank you so much for this insight. Based on that, I've been able to like see one or two mistakes I made during my own case interviews as well. I was so focused on the structuring part that when it comes to the quantitative part, I was mixing millions with billions. So in the interview, I knew no, I'm going nowhere with this. So guys, this is very, very on point. It is very, very on point. Please don't put this in your left hand, as Yoruba would say, put it in your left hand, don't use it to eat because you would need it. You would need it. So I think that will be my final question because we have about 7 minutes if you want to just take 5 minutes past three. So so that we keep the time basically. So um for our attendees, please, if you have any question, can you just raise your hand and I can call you. We can just take about 2 to 3 questions and we can just call it a day. Okay, so Lawal Tijani, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the session. So my question is a very quick one on my question. I want to ask AbdulHameed, like the whole consulting coming along the line, say when a merger and acquisition wants to take place, is it a sort of policy thing or is just a kind of strategy thing? For instance, now let's say the work of a consultant now, say for what BCG will be doing or for what McKinsey will be doing, for instance, now what if MTN decides to backward integrate and they get these guys, ready on site? Does it mean, there is not going to be a consequence around that side? Like, I just want to understand, okay, if MTN wants to acquire another player in the telecom industry now, is it mandatory by law that MTN has to, contract one of the big fours to do all those stuff, just like the way it is as in the case of auditing? That's my question one. Then for the second question, sometimes this year, I think I applied for one recruitment program like that from McKinsey, and unfortunately, I just couldn't scale beyond the test stage. So, and I've had this burning question in my mind. I've always want to ask. Okay, you work with BCG, and I believe you guys kind of do the same thing around that side. So when it gets to the test stage, like what are they really looking at that particular test stage? Because when I applied to McKinsey, I was asked to do something around ecology, something like that. And I don't even know anything about consulting. I was just coming into the system for the first time. And these guys are asking me to, do some sort of ecological lab, wherever. I don't even know what the whole stuff was all about. So I felt, I was like I flawed the whole process. So I want to understand, okay, having applied for, let's say, a consulting program or a consulting job, and then one gets to the next stage, which is the test stage. Like, what do you think, or how do you think is the best way to ace at that particular point? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, first off, Lawal, thank you so much. I really like the questions. Is it compulsory for consultancies to be engaged on projects? No, not compulsory at all. It's one of those things where and now I'm doing what I say you should not do, which is I'm not going to the point I'm not being structured. So I think there is a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out. So let's imagine that you were I don't know, you were Abdulsamad Rabiu, right? And you're about to build, Dangote has built a refinery, you want to build your own. And somebody comes to you and says, see, I work with Dangote on this end to end. And they are not lying. You actually look at it and say, oh, it doesn't actually work with Dangote on it end to end. And the scale of your project is a $200 million project. And they're saying, you pay me $2.5 million over 3 months. We'll give you everything you need to know. There's a bit of fear of missing out from corporations that makes them always pay, right? And that's why the consulting industry just continues to exist and continue to grow. So you're right. The Big Four is lucky in a sense that from an accounting and finance perspective, corporations are often mandated to use them. But strategy consulting is much more vague. It's just so like I've used acquisitions. I don't work on acquisitions, for example. I've maybe worked on one, right? So there's so many variety of problems. Sometimes it's like, let's renegotiate with all our suppliers, but we want some benchmarks on what, we should be paying the suppliers for these raw materials. Sometimes it's let's build a new website for a government, let's help somebody redesign their supply chain. There's corporations face such vague and difficult problems that they often don't have the answers to. And to be fair, sometimes consultancies also don't have the answers to and just say we go rough and pretend that they do. But no, to answer your question, there's no compulsion. It's just that I think is there's a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out. So it makes corporations do what they think other people are doing and often engage consultants help to do so. That's maybe your first question. Your second one on the test. Similar to what I said earlier, congrats on making the test, right? Because it shows that you're doing some things right. At that moment, it's just a very wide funnel of people applying. That's the truth. So, maybe McKinsey YLP, I don't know how many people they take. Maybe they take 10 people for NYSC and maybe they get like 7,000 applicants. So basically, they're just the tests are designed to be as hard as possible to reduce that number. And then the case interviews are also hard to continue to reduce that number. So what I would say is, if you have a McKinsey test or a BCG test or a Bain test or whatever, just first of all, Google, like use, Reddit in Nairaland. There's this one, I'm forgetting one website's name. My God, what's it? Prep Lounge. Let me type that in the chat. Prep Lounge. Those sorts of websites to Google and to find out what are the formats of the recent McKinsey business analyst tests been, and then you spend a lot of time researching and practicing around that format. So definitely do not take a consultancy test blind. You will not pass. It's not a course unless you are like 99.999 percentile, which I'm sure some of you are, and that's great. But for the vast majority of us, to be among the 10 from the 7,000 if you take the test blind, you can almost assure yourself you won't scale through. So at that point is when you want to do the research as much as possible to say, what does this test involve, and practice as many times as possible, so that when, when the actual time comes, you are not your normal self, you are your best self, and then you give yourself a fighting chance.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Lawal, Tijani. Thank you so much, Jazakumullah khairan.
Yeah, it
So
does.
I think
Thank
the
you.
next, you're welcome. I think the next person I would tell to mute, Akiade Moizat. Please, can you ask your question, please?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I am somebody so passionate about consulting, though I'm trying to find my path career actually. So my question is like, how do one build the business acumen and structured thinking needed, like this problem solving skills, this analytical skills? Like, how do one build it over time? Because I just understand that these case interviews that we're speaking about, they differ. Like, I mean, I have one related to a discipline and the other, and so on like that. So I want to ask, how do one build that, um, that skill? And my second question is, what trends or industry shifts should I be aware of as I prepare for this career path? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Moizat. So I remember in 2020, COVID, I quit my job, went to go for masters. At the time, I used to read McKinsey's website every day. So every day I'll just go on McKinsey's website and pick a random publication. So maybe they're talking about offshoring, maybe they are talking about implementing some new technologies, maybe they're talking about consolidation in the airline industry. Maybe they're talking about pricing for semiconductors. I don't know. Whatever it was, at some point I used to tell myself, go to McKinsey's website and read the publication every day. And I did that for a few months. Did it help? You can't tell, maybe not. But it helped my confidence a bit. It helped me to understand a bit how they thought. And made me feel more comfortable with business news. And it's free, right? So there are things like that you can do. I really recommend FT, Financial Times. Um, so yeah, in general, in Nigeria, that's Steers. Steers is really good. And I remember as well back then with some friends, we we put money together and got a paid Steers account, right? So maybe I should put some of these in chat as well. I'm sure most of you know it, but there might be some students who don't. Um, so these are like, I think Steer's aspiration is to be like the Financial Times for Africa, really, and just cover a lot of business news and business content. So what I and some friends did is we put money together and put a one account sub CHS. HS they whine me, I don't die. So and had an account, and because we all had the payment accounts, we were all reading the business news. So I think there are things like that you can do. But to me, if you've not reached the stage where you can demonstrate those things I spoke about earlier, academic excellence, leadership, volunteering, willingness to learn, comms, you shouldn't worry about things like this, because the truth is that you can spend all your days reading business news on semiconductors, reading business news on onshoring and offshoring, and then you reach an interview and the case they want you to talk about is you know insurance against wildfire in Australia, and all the news you've read will be useless. So I wouldn't approach it from a I want to read all the types of contents that means I can answer all the questions. I would approach it from a I want to build the capability in the most important things they care about. And if you fit those 4 or 5 categories, if you're able to build those capabilities, then it doesn't matter that you don't know, you have no experience in the super specific question. I know that doesn't fully answer your question, but I hope like it gives you a bit to go on.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, speaker. I think we have one more person. Dawood Adeniji can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mason. Thank you very much, Blamid. Yeah, so my question is this. I was actually like for the structured thinking. So you were saying like someone has to have a structure last week. So I was asked some behavioral questions. It was so unexpected. Like I didn't even prepare for that question. So I just go on rambling, and all. So after the whole interview, when they were not given like the organization, like the interviewer was just giving like their opinion. I felt that, but that so I think about structured thinking that you're saying the other time. So I want to ask you. So for structured thinking, for technicals, there's a way you can prepare for it. But there are some behavioral questions you won't expect. Like how did you how do you prepare for so that like how do you prepare for something like that, like behaviorals, like just unexpectedly just drop it somehow, like how do you make sure that you are talking structurally for behavioral question? That's my number one question. Then the other question is around okay, I've always seen, oh, in case interview there's no right or wrong approach, there's no right or wrong answers to case interview. Like how true is this thing? So thank you very much.
I was like, second first. There's wrong answer. There may not be right answer, but there's definitely wrong answer. So actually that's unfair because you can say when I say there's wrong answer, I don't mean in your recommendation. I mean in the delivery of the recommendation. So I'll give you an example. If the question MTN was asking you, should we acquire Glow? If you finish your recommendation and you say MTN should acquire Glow for 3 reasons. One, Glow's customer base is younger than MTN's customer base. So the average Glow customer is 19 years old. The average MTN customer is 30 years old. So this gives you higher growth and more revenue over the long term. Two, Glow's telco infrastructure network is spread out more sparsely versus MTN zone. Glow has the most networks in Kainji, meanwhile MTN only has one, right? So there's a lot of work to do there. Three, Glow's Glow's leadership team has a great relationship with the regulators, and while the MTN team continues to get fined every year, Glow has never been fined. For these reasons, I think MTN should acquire Glow. If you give a strong answer with strong recommendations. Now you can do the opposite and say MTN should not acquire Glow. One, Glow's leadership team is a legacy team in a one-man business. They've not had successive leaderships. It's always been run by Adenuga, so we think they will struggle. Two, Glow's Glow's network is known for being unreliable and does not have the reputation that MTN has. Three, Glow's Glow's services are very concentrated. They're only focused on the mobile. Nobody uses a Glow MiFi. Nobody uses Glow they don't have fiber infrastructure. They don't have a business to business, division. They only sell directly to customers, blah, blah, blah. So for these reasons, MTN should not acquire Glow. So that's what I mean by there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever your answer is, as long as it's logical, you can communicate it and you use data and insight that came out from that discussion. That's where it's true, there's no right or wrong answer. But if in the discussion it came out that, Glow's telecom infrastructure network is better than MTN zone, Glow's, like as part of all those analysis and graphs they showed you, you came to all the answers that says you should acquire Glow. You now say no, you should not acquire Glow. They now say why. You say you don't think it's a good company. So, in that case, it's a wrong answer. So, in general, there is true. There's not supposed to be a right or wrong answer. It depends on the insight you get, and the insights you get depend on the questions you ask and how you frame it. You can many times give the answer the interviewer was not expecting, and they will pass you many times. But it just needs to be logical from the insights you get. So that's what I mean by there can be wrong answer. On the behavioral part, the default structured ways, I'm sure most people know it, the STAR framework: situation, task, action, result. So tell me about a time when you presented to a large audience. Okay, well, the time was in May 20, so situation, it was in May 2025, and I'd been called by a group of students and early career professionals trying to transition to consulting. My task was basically to give a 1 hour presentation sharing my experiences, talking about the interview process, blah, blah, blah. Action, I don't know. Like, as I prepared for the interview or before the interview, I was part of the promotion process to ensure that we got the right people to show up. I identified the stories I needed to tell, blah, blah, blah. And then I actually showed up with camera on and blah, 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 and took notes what I learned from the session. And the result was, we're able to support 20 people to learn more about life in consulting. And 2 years later, 3 people from that group actually secured consulting jobs. So that's the STAR framework, right? So the STAR framework applies to anything that is behavioral. So you can come across structured. You just need to practice. And me, what I do personally, and the questions they will ask in all behavioral interviews, there's like 10 or 15 of them. Like whatever the interview is, tell me about yourself. Why this job and why this industry? Tell me about a time you showed leadership skills. Tell me about a time you faced a challenge. Tell me about a time you failed. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Let me see. Is there anybody that's foreign that can give me one? Anybody that's foreign that can give me an example of a behavioral question? But like, there's like 15 questions.
Probably a time when
Tell
you
me
lead
about
a
the time
team.
you led a team.
Exactly.
So when we started from that, what are the 4 or 5 capabilities they care about? Once you start from those, and then you do all the permutation and combination of the questions, there's max 15 questions that you can get asked in any such interview. So what I do personally is before the interview, I'll write down those 10 or 15, and I'll check Glassdoor and all those places that what are the questions I see to see if there's any unique ones I've not seen before. Otherwise, I'll write out those 10 or 15 and record myself giving an answer literally on Zoom, and on empty Zoom that is just me and all of you are not here. And I'll say, okay, then by the time you failed, and I'll do it and record it, and I'll watch it. And I will watch it and say, I spent too long talking about this situation. I actually forgot. I didn't say anything on my action. Or, oh, I forgot my result. My result was not crisp. That result isn't strong. So some people, they're geniuses. They get things handed to them. I think for most of us, it's talent and good luck, and alhamdulillah, was also a lot of work. And I think being willing to put in the work to practice, it yields fruits, or at least it has for me.
Thank you so much. I would hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, AbdulHameed.
Mubarak and Adeola, I'm so sorry, but I think that will be the end for today because
So if it's on me, I'm calm. I'm happy to let's do it. If it's
okay.
me, but that's fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Mubarak, you can throw your question.
Yeah, it's more like of a comment. Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, brother AbdulHameed, for the insightful. I have learned a lot of things in management, because even though I don't know if I want to go into management in the future, but like I've learned a lot of things and things to look out for. May Allah bless you, and thanks you to NextGen for picking up. I just want to add that, for example, I think I came across a medical doctor in the United States I think he leads the medical management group for KPMG. And I was just wondering, what is the medical doctor first doing over there? Then I went to his profile and I realized that he has helped in managing a lot of health issues in there too. So management consulting, it's at a broad scope. For example, I've worked with management consultants and address a lot of tax issues in Nigeria, I think different of them, both the core management and the core, and also the big four, and also a lot of things like that. So like it's just a very insightful um lecture. The delivery was so great, and I think many of us have learned and relearned, or like relearned a lot of things we are doing. So may Allah bless you abundantly. Thank you.
I mean, and you, my brother, Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you so much. I think we have one last person, Adiola Akonji Oladogun. Please, can you go ahead with your question?
Thank you so much. Um, Thank you so much for the session and everything. I've learned a lot. Some of my questions have been answered from, yeah, the answers you gave to the other participants. I have three questions though. First question, I've happened to apply for BCG before, but yeah, I wasn't really serious. It was when I was fresh out of school, and I made it past the initial stage, but I didn't make it past the test stage because I was so confused. It wasn't like a normal question that would just be, oh, like advice on this. It was just a lot of things I had to do in numbers and kind of like modeling, but in a simpler way. So I was quite lost. But I think you've spoken on that, and I guess it's just for me to refresh my skills on those parts. My question relating to that was that when I had applied initially, I think that was for the entry role, maybe the graduate program, or I have no idea. I really can't remember. But then I had no experience and I was applying for that role. Currently, I happen to have a bit of experience in IBD and moving to like trade finance where I am now. Do you think it's advisable for me to still apply for a graduate role going straight to like an associate role or something? Because some people say investment banking and consulting are quite alike. So yeah, I would like your advice on what to apply, going for the direct graduate role or the associate role. Second question, linked to the first question still. Consulting and IBD, would you say they are related or they are very different? Last question for me is quite personal. Is there any work-life balance, or it's just a thing where you're just like, well, since you're coming to consulting, you just basically treat your life? Because that was why I left IBD, to be honest. I felt like it was too. I couldn't find myself anymore, so I had to move to somewhere less. So is consulting that way, or is it more chill? And yeah, by the way, you're very chill. I didn't expect you to be very chill, making some side Nigerian comments here and there. So yeah. Thank you.
First off, thank you so much, Adela, and thanks for the compliment as well. Really appreciate it. Two or three questions, graduates, work-life balance, and we'll see if anything I missed. The answer is it depends on the graduate slash versus associate. I think I looked you up super quickly. You've spent 2 years in IB, so I think you should not be applying for the YLP or the GAP. I think you can make a case to be hired as a business analyst at McKinsey or an associate at BCG or something like that. So because you are not fully fresh, right? So that's my genuine first impression. But I've seen many people that, myself included, that were down leveled when they switched, right? So I was down leveled when I switched from ZS to BCG. And one of my bonds, Fathu Ijaya, who used to be at BCG Lagos, I think at the time he had spent like 2.5 years working in, I've forgotten where he worked, but they took him back down to being an associate. So some of what I'm trying to say is it depends. I would say if you see both, apply to both. So when you see the YLP or the gap opening, throw in an application. Separately, when you see that they're applying for recruiting for business analyst or associates or whichever term they use, throw in an application and see which one calls you. Yeah, because for me, I got basically at the associate level is when I was hired in London. from ZS, and I could have argued that I should have been hired at the level above that, right? But that was not what happened. So yeah, so I would say just apply and see what happens. On work-life balance. Yeah, in general, if you're doing strategy consulting, your life is not your life. That's just it. And if you think about it, it's annoying, but it makes sense. What is McKinsey selling or BCG selling or Bain selling? They are selling your time to corporations. So that should tell you that your time is not yours. Your time belongs to BCG or McKinsey or Bain for them to sell to corporations. So no, you don't get work-life balance. You don't get work-life balance. In some industries are better than some industries. Some cities and countries are better than some cities and countries, but you don't get off at 5, you don't get off at 6, you don't get off at 7. So a very good project means you are getting off at 9 p.m. If you're getting off at 9 p.m., you'll be very happy, right? So anywhere between 9 p.m. and midnight 1 a.m. is fair game. If you're doing a 3 a.m. project, which I did earlier this year, that's a terrible project. If you're doing an 8:30 p.m. project, that's a bloody fantastic project. You won't be able to believe it. But anything between 9 and 11 midnight is normal working hours. So is that good work-life balance? Is that bad work-life balance? You have to answer that question by yourself, but that's really what it is. Was there one more question I missed? I'm not sure because I think I captured 2, but I felt like you had 3.
Yes, sorry. Sorry. Thank you so much for your answers. I was just asking if you would say consulting is like IBD, if they're linked, if they're intertwined, or there's a huge difference.
They're different. The only place they overlap is if you are working on M&A, so mergers and acquisitions, because you need to have an investment bank if you're doing those deals, or private equity, all those, anything to do with finance, acquisitions, financial transactions, sales and purchases of companies. That's where there's overlap. But outside of that, consulting is so varied, but IB is more focused. That's the impression I have, that it's much more focused. But consulting is so varied. Like the project I was working on a few weeks ago was helping the R&D organization of a pharma company to redesign their org structure, right? My own team there was like 2,000 people. The full R&D org was like 14,000 people. An investment banker has no interest in such discussions. They won't be called to do things like that. So like the breadth of the type of things you work on in consulting is so much wider. But if you want to be a core finance person, IB is much better, and IB money is better, which is why I've been whining Motunrola as well. So you have to choose what you're more interested in.
Yeah, if I may add just to that, thank you so much, Hameed, for joining us today. IB and consulting is not the same. IB is very varied as well. Some is just advisory. Some we're actually working with capital, lending to corporations. I see you work at RMB, so I'm sure you've seen the varied breadth of what IB can be. But what they both have in common is they both don't have work-life balance. So cheers to you, whatever you pick.
Auntie Shakira, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation.
No, thank you. I think there might be one more hand up. Please go on if the hand is, I don't know if it's an old one or a new one.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
I just like some kind of advice. I'm writing the exams, that the BCG internship role for analyst. So I'm writing the exams maybe tomorrow or next tomorrow. So I'm thinking if I could have some piece of advice from you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you too, sir. Try to find somebody that's done it in Lagos. Yeah, that's well. See, that it's having the same question. Let me try and read it. Is there a template for answering case studies? No. But I think I put in prep plan. I'll type in a few websites. So casecoach.com, preplounge.com. Those are the best ones. Generally, they're expensive to pay for a premium account, but if a few of you put money together, like if you have friends in the process, you can do it. And also if you're in the process, like if you get called for a BCG interview, they'll give you a free case coach account. Same with McKinsey, I believe, etc. But to answer your question more directly, I can't be super helpful here because my own process was not the Lagos office. It was London office, and their process was slightly different. Their test is slightly different. So like I can't like I genuinely can't say something that would be super helpful. But what I would say is it's been done before. So just try to find anybody that's taken the test already, or people who are currently in the Lagos office, or literally Google. These things are always on Neverland. BCG Graduate Analyst Program exam questions. You see somebody has written something somewhere. Also, people like Jarus Hub on Twitter, Deepak Williams, AbdulHameed Williams, they will always have done threads on these things. So just try to figure out what the format is. And the second, and also check YouTube. Once you are, and usually they'll say the format in your invitation. They might say BCG AI case interview by KC. Then go on YouTube and search how to navigate BCG KC interview. So there, I don't know, tens of thousands of people around the world in these processes, and you will find content. You will find like content on the internet. Just practice with that content, because don't go blind. That one I can tell you for sure. As somebody who got into BCG on my third attempt, I can tell you that the prep level for my third attempt was much, much better than the other. Of course, I was fortunate and all those other things, so I'm not discounting it. But in hindsight, I thought I was prepared the first and second time, and I wasn't. And one thing I want to add is on consulting case interviews, and is people think they are ready, but they are not. How do I mean? Very similar with GRE, and there's somebody here that we just had the GRE discussion. People think they are ready, but they are not, because how people measure success is not how the people who are evaluating you measure success. I'll say that again. If you ask 100 people, can you drive? Almost all of them will say, I can drive. But the test you are doing is not somebody saying, did this person drive from point A to point B? The test you are doing is trying to identify the top 1% drivers. So they are going to tell all of you, drive from Unilag Gate to Unilag Mosque. Of the 100 people, 80 people will actually get to Unilag Mosque and park and feel like, I passed though, I drove. But what these people, they only want the top 1% of drivers. So they are going to see, they are counting how many times did you use the horn. They are counting who arrived early, who arrived late. They are counting who stopped at zebra crossing. They are counting who, before he increased his speed or he checked his speed, he looked in the rearview mirrors to see if there was a car close to him at the back. So they, like, what they're evaluating is so much that they are then filtering to say they took the best. So many people, myself included, in my earlier attempts, you're like, shebi I don't sabi, I'm no be analytical, no be graph, no be na smalls now. And you feel like, yeah, I get the points. But that, I get the point, is not what success looks like. Success looks like I have gone through the process in so much detail with so much practice, and ever looked at all the different minor components that have been evaluated, that I have some level of confidence that I will deliver. Then you are ready. So many people think they are ready, whether it's for GRE exam, whether it's for TOEFL, whether it's for consulting case interviews. Too many people that I've seen think they are ready too early. And one person that really pained me, Cambridge grad, Niger person, we hustled together for the BCG Kini. This is like a year or so after I was there. And I was looking at his guy that, bro, you're not ready. And he was like, I sabi am now, no be me. I was like, okay, cool. But at the end of the day, he didn't get it, because I could see that one kakun, to use the Yoruba, like he did not appreciate the extent of work that was required for their evaluation. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are in a position where you have any of these things coming up, if you think you're ready, don't say nah, I'm good. Like actually go and test and talk to people and do practice case interviews and do 10 mock GRE exams before your actual GRE. Let the data tell you are ready. If your GRE target is 330 over 340 and you have 10 mock exams and you got 332, then the data has told you are ready. But if it is, I know the quant side, I've practiced the verbal writing, I know the conversation side, I'm ready. No, you're not.
Thank you so much, Jazakumullah Khairan. I think that's the last person. Can we all go to our chat and say, big Jazakumullah Khairan to our speaker? We've learned a lot today. We've spent about an hour, 30 minutes plus on this call. Please go to your chat and say a big Jazakumullah Khairan to our speaker for today. Jazakumullah khairan, Mr. Abdulhameed. We really appreciate your presence. We appreciate your knowledge. We appreciate your time. We know you're a very busy person, but you still took time to speak with us today and share your knowledge and impact with everyone here. So Jazakumullah khairan, and Allah will reward you abundantly.
Thank you.
So,
It's
Bye.
yeah.
If I may add to that, if you were to sort of, I said apportion how much this hour costs in this paycheck, I guess some of us on this call will not be able to pay it. So we really appreciate it.
You can definitely pay it.
This is I said some of us now. Before you say I'm lying, I'm not lying.
You can, whatever it is, you can definitely pay it for sure.
But we really appreciate this. May Allah continue to put barakah in your work. May He continue to uplift you. And for all the undergrads on this call, I pray that you all get into the careers that is best for you. And inshallah, we'll all thrive in our careers. And please remember to give back and, give the coming generations as well. As you can see, it can't get into these industries without some help. Like, you need some help somewhere along the line. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
To get in was a lot, and like, yeah, anybody that pretends to you like they are smart, they got in, they are pretending. It's help, it's good fortune, it's Allah's grace and hard work, put everything together. So yeah, honestly, let's do it. Somebody was telling me recently, I think BCG Lagos, he couldn't find a single Muslim, and I think he ended up finding one. But like, yeah, like there's work to do, right? In Lagos, it's like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's 100 people and they couldn't find one Muslim. Yeah. So honestly, whatever we need to do to enter these organizations and have some success, I think it's a good.
Yeah. We'll keep putting in the work. Thank you so
much, Shakira. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Motun, for hosting.
Yes, thank you, Motu, and thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Hassan, for helping do all the organization. And thank you to many of my guys that I see in the audience. Make I know cast all over now, but really, really nice to see you guys.
Thank you so much. And for everyone that joined, please remember that we won't be having session next week because of Eid, but next upper week, which is June 14th, we'll be having the final session. Come in, bring your thinking caps, bring your listening ears, because it will be as wholesome as today's own. So I think that will be all for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much to our speaker as well once again. Jazakumullah khairan and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bye.